I used to own a Game Boy Advance back on its release date in 2001. It was the Indigo version, and I fondly remember my first game for it, which was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Advance. Later on I got Crazy Racers, and that's where my interest kinda stuck. The games were super expensive, and with a lot of other consoles to play, and with the early announcement of the PlayStation Portable, I somehow forgot about how great this portable unit actually is. So I went on the hunt for a GBA that I could breathe new life to. I came across one on a Dutch online forum, and its owner was willing to sell it to me for 40 euros. When it arrived, I was kinda disappointed, in many ways. Not only was the unit somewhat damaged, the original screen was unacceptable for playing anything on it. The original shell was scuffed intensely. It has paint scratches all around, and is very dirty. There are signs of leftover food crumbs, skin remnants, and regular dirt. But the biggest concern here is its original screen. And to be dead honest, it's even worse than the original Game Boy Classic in that regard. I have no idea how I used to play on this. It's unbearable in every sense. You need a lot of direct sunlight hitting it to see a fraction of what's going on. Tilt the screen a bit and you'll lose sight. It does not help either that the screen is heavily scratched with tiny hair scratches, which makes it even worse for viewing. When you look at this footage, you might say it looks reasonable. That's because I had to shine some extra light to even see what I was doing through the camera viewfinder. Compare the Game Boy Classic IPS screen mod that I did to this, and it's very painful. So I'm going to make this dying 19-year-old classic unit into something you will not recognize from its current state. These are the components I will be using for this modification. Of course, the original GBA, which will only be salvaged for its internals, a new Super Famicom style shell, new decal stickers for the back of the shell, IPS screen ribbon cable, 3M screen sticker, back foam, some wires for soldering, the plastic front screen, the IPS screen itself, and the new buttons. Like any other Nintendo product, you need to open the GBA with a tri-wing screwdriver on the outside. Remove the battery lid, and there is a Phillips head screw. Like said, I'm gutting the GBA here just for its internals, so everything else can be put aside. The motherboard is held in place with two Phillips head screws. Word of advice is to apply some extra but light pressure to have some momentum when turning these 2 decades old screws. A thing I've noticed about older screws is that some of them are brittle. Since most of these aftermarket mods come shipped with new ones, the only priority is to get them out, as I will be replacing them with the newer ones. I have to admit that I got stuck here for a few minutes on what to do, thinking I needed the original screen cable. Such is not the case. I detached it and set aside the front shell, including the original screen. This mod uses a complete and modern ribbon cable to feed the data going to the IPS screen. Next step is to place the 3M sticker inside the pre-cut front shell. As I said in the Game Boy Classic video, it's best to place the sticker as a whole in the shell. Then pop the middle section out to prevent adjusting it the hard way later on if it isn't correctly fitted. Peel the protection layer off the IPS screen, and it's time to align it. Now this is a bit tricky. The case may be pre-cut, but it does not state what the exact alignment should be. The first try wasn't right. I could see the silver edge on the IPS screen, so I had to softly remove the screen from the sticker. The risk in doing so is breaking the fragile screen. Any breakage would only be visible at the very end. I chose to align it facing the panel towards me, so I could align it properly with the screen taking its full ratio and leaving no edge visible. If this was correct, it would only be known at the very end, but this was the best guess I could make. Now here's something that's optional and which I wanted to do and tried my best on doing so. As stated before, I'm not very good at soldering. I think the real problem is the old solder I'm using, instead of my technique, which works half of the time. Now I tried to install this backlight wiring. It allows the user to adjust the backlighting by pressing the LNR buttons from dim to bright. Seeing as the solder popped off the ribbon at the end, I just gave up. I would be totally fine with the full brightness of the IPS screen anyway, so I decided to skip this part. And now here's the part that totally confused me. The online manual states that this side of the ribbon cable should be attached to the motherboard, but its pins are far more than allowed. In other words, this side of the cable is way too wide to fit it. I tried multiple things, but only the other end of the ribbon cable seemed to fit. I made a gamble and fitted in the other end. I placed the ribbon PCB underneath the motherboard and bent the cable a bit. This felt unnatural, and I have to say that the designer of this cable did not think this through. My only concern was to get the digitizer attached to the ribbon PCB so I could make the connection. I got everything in and it felt okay. Nothing seemed to be crammed, although the internals felt even more unnatural, as the innards were thickening it up. Between the back of the screen and the battery compartment, a piece of foam needed to be inserted. Due to the fact that I was so heavily invested into making it all fit, I just forgot to put back the rubber domes and buttons, a most essential part that, to my luck, fitted back in with ease. From this part on, it's just placing back every part in its original position, and working up to the point where I could just test the screen if it worked. But there was a problem. While screwing in each bolt, I noticed that the L and R buttons were becoming less clicky and responsive. I adjusted and readjusted the 4 screws near the buttons, but came to this conclusion. Due to the fact that the GBA has become internally thicker, the shell could not be screwed down tight to narrow the gaps. The tighter the gap on the top, the less responsive the L and R buttons became. So I had to make a compromise by leaving a bit of a gap on the top. This isn't a real issue, but it isn't flattering. The rest of it felt excellent, however. It was time to put on its final touches. And after 19 years, this Game Boy Advance could finally take a breath of fresh air. Now I had actually already made my choice. When it came to the back decal stickers, I am a huge Rockman fan. I could not deny it. And if I would get bored, I could just turn them off and place other ones instead. To ensure that this GBA could withstand another 20 years or so, this see-through column is a nice added touch. The results speak for themselves. Whereas the original screen made gaming on the GBA unplayable, the new IPS screen makes for a joyful playing experience. Heck, I would even say that it would give most modern screens a run for their money. It is ultra crisp, with superb viewing angles and vibrant colors. Even Super Mario Land on its unit can rival the Game Boy Classic now. Compare it to the other units that I own, and I even have to admit that the GBA screen is the best of the bunch. This was another one of my hardware related videos. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least inspired you to find some old classic units and try to restore them yourself. If you liked this video, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you on a next hardware related episode, and thank you for watching.